Hi there, I'm Uncle Joel and this is Pin and Reel, where I will take a look at media issues not from the perspective of a fan or consumer, but as a writer and filmmaker. Now, it's no secret to anyone who knows me that I am a big DC Comics fan. I started reading comics as a teenager when I received hundreds for extremely cheap at a local library book sale. These were almost exclusively DC, mostly a bunch of 90s Superman, Batman, and more. But my love affair with DC began even before that, with both Batman the Animated Series and Superman the Animated Series. Sure, there were X-Men, Spider-Man, and other superhero cartoons, but nothing quite struck me like DC, particularly Superman. Unfortunately, the movies we've received for DC superheroes have been a very mixed bag. I loved the Dark Knight trilogy, and I enjoyed Man of Steel. I did not, however, care for Batman vs. Superman, Justice League, or Suicide Squad. I thought Aquaman was merely okay. Wonder Woman was pretty good, although I have several gripes about it. Shazam is the only recent DC movie that I can't particularly complain about, but I watched it opening day with low expectations and haven't seen it since, so I'm not certain my opinion will hold up upon repeat viewing. So what is WB thinking? And I think their ultimate problem is that they wanted to play catch up with Marvel. The fundamental difference between the two companies is that Marvel wanted to focus on making good movies, whereas WB wanted to compete and to have their piece of the pie as well, focusing on the money and success rather than on the movies themselves. What WB doesn't seem to understand is the fundamental basis for any company with a product they want to sell. If you have a genuinely good product, it will sell and you will make money. You cannot focus on the end goal of making money and ignore making a product of good quality. It seems that WB has started to learn from their mistakes, although exactly what lessons they have learned remains to be seen. Plans for its second Justice League movie, the continuation of Ben Affleck as Batman, and the overall DCEU seems to have been scrapped. And in its place, we are getting individual movies that focus on specific characters, with an interconnected universe seemingly all but forgotten at the moment. With some recent success in the likes of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam, could WB finally be on the right track? What can they possibly do to capitalize on this success and build toward a future that continues to see the DC universe grow in producing quality films? It is my belief that they should take a look at Marvel and follow certain things that have worked for them, while also using it as an opportunity to do something different. Don't try to play catch-up. Don't try to make DC's version of Marvel movies. Just focus on making good movies, building up strong characters, and establishing reliable, known properties that you can use later. To start, WB needs to loosen the reins a bit in terms of creativity. They are notorious for refusing cross-pollination, such as insisting Batman not appear in CW shows, or using Arrow as a testing grounds for the Suicide Squad, and then later saying that same property is off-limits to Arrow once they decided to go ahead with the movie. Likewise, insisting on rushing movies out the gate in order to capitalize on the success of superheroes at the moment is forcing creators to make lackluster films. If WB wants to do things right, they will follow the Marvel example and establish their own Kevin Feige, a creative director who can oversee all DC films. They need someone who can keep track of lore, continuity, and recognize the strengths and weaknesses of their different characters and franchises. Superman is supposed to be noble and inspiring, not brooding in the figure of controversy. Batman is supposed to be the loner who reluctantly works with others for tactical purposes, not the guy who assembles the Justice League and insists everyone works together. Much as DC brought in Jeff Johns to oversee Rebirth and make sure the correct writer worked on the correct property, and that they understood the characters, WB needs someone who can work directly with directors, writers, and the studio to make sure the spirit and heart of the characters stay true throughout the process. With this in place, WB needs to do much of what they're doing now, and focus first and foremost on building up their characters in their own individual movies. We can see a character introduced in another movie, as Wonder Woman was introduced in Batman vs. Superman, but don't necessarily do so in order to build to something like Justice League. Do it to make an organic world that feels rich and populated, and because it serves both the characters and the story. I'm not certain that WB necessarily understands that at this point, as they seem to be running with whatever success they've found, but since they're having some success in its individual movies, I won't begrudge them that. What they do need to do, however, is not overdo it. Don't churn out sequels because they are successful. Build the world. Shazam was really good, but don't look at that as an opportunity to charge forward and make a trilogy. Focus on Black Adam next. Make a good Shazam sequel only if you have a good story to do so. Continue with Wonder Woman, building the world around her, establishing the mythology of the character, no pun intended, to make it clear who she is and what she stands for. Give us a new Superman movie, one that, for good or ill, scraps what we got in Man of Steel and the subsequent movies. Focus on building him up as a character of inspiration, strength, and a leader. If you want to eventually do movies that question if a man should have that much power, do so in a way that keeps with the character, not in a dark, brooding movie like Batman vs. Superman. If you want to try the death of Superman again, do it years down the road, once we have an established world filled with people who know Superman, have been inspired by him, are connected to him, so we can actually see the effect of that his death would have. My next video is going to be all about what I would do for a Superman movie. Then WB needs to give us a Flash movie, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and do each unique. These are all very different characters that live in different worlds, even if they are interconnected. Do Flash as a lighthearted adventure. Green Lantern should be a sweeping sci-fi epic, one that could introduce any number of spacefaring adventurers. Adam Strange, Hawkman, Fourth World. Give us a Green Arrow who is a grassroots activist who defies the rich playboy stereotype by getting down and dirty and fighting corruption on the street level, different from Batman by his caring about politics and social justice issues. Give us a Martian Manhunter film that's all about Detective John Jones, and make it a noir story that builds to have larger elements towards the end. For instance, the criminals he winds up investigating could be Intergang. There is no reason all of the movies need to have the same tone, and WB could set themselves apart from Marvel in this regard. Show us different genres, even within a loosely united universe. And again, go different from Marvel. Don't show us how these are all men and women like us. Show us how these are men and women who can inspire us and we can aspire to emulate. Go the Grant Morrison route and make the Justice League gods among men. Highlight their inspirational qualities, the parts of characters that make us want to be like them. If all this did was set DC apart from Marvel, that should be reason enough, but I feel it would serve a much greater purpose of inspiring hope once more. Instill the movies with a sense of hope and inspiration by giving us people we can look up to, heroes we can trust, and characters we can emulate. Through each movie, you can put little bits and pieces of a growing threat, similar to Marvel, but much more subtle. Marvel had the Infinity Stones, which was a not very subtle way of tying the movies together and building up the coming of Thanos. But DC can take that same notion and fine-tune it. Consider this. The Martian Manhunter movie has him investigating Intergang, who are receiving alien weaponry from an unknown source. Green Arrow fights corruption in Star City, and we find that part of the corruption is key political figures allowing for certain criminal activity to occur in exchange for staying out of more upscale parts of town, and one of those criminal groups would be Intergang. In Flash, we get numerous background news segments featuring G. Gordon Godfrey on a Fox News-type talk show, stoking the fires of alien fear. Is Superman really out for our best interest? What of reports of so-called Hawk people? People are claiming to have witnessed a man transforming into a Martian. Why do we have aliens hiding among us? Is this grounds for a coming invasion? Disparate movies with subtle connections like this that all point to the future could give them an interconnectivity that feels very real without being in your face. Together, they build to the future, and these elements could get moved more and more to the forefront of the narratives, until eventually a Justice League movie would be inevitable. Intergang is spread, alien weaponry is running rampant on Earth, and signs point to a dark threat coming to Earth in the very near future, all centered around one mysterious thing that keeps popping up. Something called anti-life. This would bring us to the Justice League forming and the arrival of Darkseid. Not a mere 3 movies into the universe being established, but dozens of movies in. Viewers would get a kick out of looking for all the different plot threads being woven throughout the different movies. And if they didn't catch them the first time, it would give added incentive to go back and watch again. And then, Darkseid wouldn't be killed, merely driven off, with a barely managed win in the face of overwhelming destruction and loss. The world is forced to deal with the ramifications of the invasion, appreciation for the Justice League coupled with a newfound xenophobia, and recovering from such unimaginable disaster. The newly formed Justice League would then have a mission in mind: protect the world, and prepare for what they believe is the inevitable return of Darkseid and the forces of Apocalypse. If WB followed these plans, we would get a truly epic storytelling, a grand scale that would only build for years to come. With a true creative lead overseeing everything, we could have continuity without uniformity, a problem I personally have had with most of Marvel's movies. I don't want all of the different heroes movies to feel the same. Waiting for the big confrontation allows us to truly get to know them so that we feel the weight of what is to come. When they feel outmatched, overpowered, hopeless, it is after seeing them triumph time and again, so the gravity of the confrontation would carry so much added weight. And then victory by the narrowest of stretches, leaving the impending return something that could come at any time, building even more tension for any movie that follows. And what's more, Apocalypse attacking will alert the universe to the seeming importance of Earth, opening the world up to all sorts of invasion and attention they are ill prepared for. This could create so much storytelling potential and really push the movies forward for the next wave. Overall, there is a great deal that WB needs to do to correct their mistakes of the past and hope to be in the same league as Marvel. In a lot of ways, I don't think that should be the focus, but since that is the ultimate goal, financial success with a series of consistently good movies that spark excitement for one another, it's worth considering. At the very least, plenty of non-franchise movies fail for a variety of reasons, so Marvel's ability to continually churn out decent movies is marvelous in and of itself. But if WB at all hopes to compete, they're going to need to step back and rethink their method from the ground up. In future movies, I will explore how WB might address individual characters, such as Superman in my next video, but for now, this will have to do for the DCEU as a whole. But what do you think? Do you feel I have laid out a decent path for how WB could correct their many wrongs? Would you like to see a DC universe built the way I outlined? Do you have any ideas on how to fix some of WB's mistakes? Let me know in the comments. I look forward to hearing what you think. Until next time, this is Uncle Joel saying, stay tangible.